if you're close with people in your league, I advise you to do so because knowledge is power in a league. If you understand how other people view players, you can potentially get a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how you win trades. Is if you get a player that's higher kind of in your rankings than theirs.
And one thing that you should never be afraid of with trades is never be afraid of getting the wrong side of the deal.
Yeah.
Go with your gut.
If you fill your need, you shouldn't care what you give up. And sometimes you just need to go bold and just
yeah.
trade.
Because with any trade, you're always going to have holes to try to refill.
Yep.
But never try to just hurt your team so bad. But just go and try to see what you can improve your team upon.
Yeah. So reeling David back in and going back to the quarterbacks, we recommend. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, those should all be taken, I think, in most leagues, in at least the first 4 rounds, and they should be kept. And then everyone after that, it's kind of a coin flip. I think that Stafford he could go right after those.
With any player that has Megatron as their wide receiver.
Yeah, but, I drafted him in the first round a few years ago, and he let me know. I'm not completely sold on him. I think that I'd be much happier waiting. Like I can't believe Jake Cutler's all the way at 13. You think he's throwing to, assuming he stays healthy, he's throwing to Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey. Like, how can that guy?
And then having Matt Forte in there also.
Yeah. Well, that might cut into his value a little bit.
But one thing about the Bears though is that Cutler has been known to just do the pick 6 all the time.
Yeah, well, pick 6 on this. I haven't heard anyone who, if you give up a pick 6, if that counts against you. But interception's interception.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the most important fantasy commodity, which is running backs. And before we continue on the running backs, I should point out that the league that we're in, we're PPR 1 point. So for every reception, any player gets, it's 1 point. So that's a huge value. And if you look at kind of like how does it affect your league, it kind of devalues the value of the quarterback and the defense of the kicker. It really kind of elevates the wide receivers and the running backs. Mm-hmm. Particularly if you kind of have that Darren Sproles pass-catching running back. That really makes it from like a sleeper to like one of the top tier guys.
But he can also hurt you.
Sure. So let's talk about who's kept. I'm just gonna go off the running backs on my rankings. First off, we have Jamal Charles.
Oh God! If someone was not going to take Jamal or keep Jamal Charles, they're idiots.
Well, I've heard from some other people. I guess in terms of top. Speaking of top pick overall, Jamal Charles is probably a safe one to go, but a lot of people are really high on Adrian Peterson.
But the thing about Adrian Peterson, how old is he? How?
I think he's 28. I don't know if he's 29 birthdays.
I actually think he's in his 30s.
Oh, no way. I looked at it the other day.
Because I remember going on, watching something on ESPN, and they had them analyzing running backs over the age of 30. And they had Adrian Peterson saying that I think he said that they're going...
Adrian Peterson is 29, and his birthday is in March, so he's 29 throughout this season.
Okay. But anyways, they were talking about running backs that are going to age 30 and how their yardage gets cut basically in half. And so I thought that he was actually turning 30 this year.
So, yeah, but I think that, personally, you got to go with Jamal Charles. He's probably not going to have the same year he had last year. But Andy Reid, he's generally always has a really good running back. As long as Jamal Charles stays healthy, because he had that bad injury a few years back. I think it was opening day, and he really screwed a whole lot of fantasy owners that year.
Yeah, and also with having the quarterback of Smith on there, that the running back has to be the core of the team.
Yeah, and here's the thing that I'd be worried about as well is that Charles got knocked out in that in the playoff game against the Colts. So I could see them really trying to protect Jamal Charles because despite the fact that Chiefs had a huge lead in that game, obviously their chances are better when they have Jamal Charles.
Yeah.
So I really think that they might try to pair him with the backup. I don't know who the backup for Kansas City is, but, I try to keep keep him fresh. Mm-hmm. So we got LaShawn McCoy, which I think is a very interesting player to have. Obviously, a lot of these running backs you're talking about, they have to be kept because, running back isn't that deep. There's probably only 10 elite running backs, and after that, you're gonna have some head scratchers.
Yeah, and especially with the Philadelphia Eagles, who don't have Michael Vick anymore, but they have Nick Foles.
Yeah.
I just wonder how is the offense going to change around Nick Foles, because as a lot of people have said that he's the second coming of Christ, and with his 2 interceptions that he just thrown last year, that no one can expect him to do that. But I'm just wondering if the offense is going to be more on.
We kind of already saw what Nick Foles can do. We saw him work with Chip Kelly and like the end of last year, and Vic really didn't have anything to say about it. I think McCoy is going to be. He might be a little bit better than last year, but I don't know. His value might be a little declined because they have Sproles, and he might take away some of those pass catching.
Mm-hmm.
They lost Bryce Brown, so he's kind of clearly that guy. So,
all right. So what do we got on next?
Matt Forte.
Now, on one of our podcasts that we actually listened to, I think it's the ESPN podcast.
Yep.
They have had an analyzation of people in the first round with the first pick have picked Matt Forte.
Yeah, he's going the top 5 picks.
Now, would you say that's smart to do? Is to have him as a first round pick, or?
Sure. Yeah, I would take him. I'd love to have Matt Forte. He's on a good offense, and I think they're going to be high scoring offense. They're not getting the Chicago Bears of old, where their defense they have Jeffrey, they have Marshall. Jay Cutler's. I think that you could do worse than Jay Cutler. I'm a little high on Jay
And
Cutler.
the great thing about Forte in a PPR league, he is gold, because you definitely do know that he's going to get his passes.
Yeah, he's going to get his passes, as long as he stays healthy.
He's going to be so. Definitely, that was a good pick to have.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson we touched on. He's. I've heard a lot that they have a new offensive coordinator. I don't remember who it was, but. It's Gary Morton's running back. They don't have they haven't decided on their quarterback yet. They drafted Teddy Bridgewater. They have Matt Castle there, so they're really going to lean on Peterson. Maybe it'll be like the Peterson of like a few years ago, where he led them to the playoffs with that huge monster.
Because, speaking of a fantasy level, I would love for Adrian Peterson just to go, bonkers and just show us what he can do. But I would rather see him say, "I'm going to take a step back in the just running the ball and to make my team a better team and get into the playoffs."
How do you recommend he does that? Because if I'm Adrian Peterson and I look around me, I'm going to just run down the middle. I'm going to try and...
So you're saying that he should be the player that says, "Get behind me, and we're going to go."
Yeah, because you can't rely on your quarterback. You got to be Superman.
Because that's one of the bad things about the Minnesota Vikings. They're one of those teams that can't be reliant upon just their quarterback. They're just reliant on
but they have no other choice.
Yeah,
he needs to take the pressure off his quarterback, whoever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's 4 top running backs. There's those 4, and then after that,
it just sinks.
Yeah, those are the 4 I would be really happy with getting in the first round, and I think that if you're in the late end of your first round or even in the second round, you need to grab these people like as soon as your turn comes up and grab them, because these guys are the most secure. These are the stud guys from last year. These, I think, are the best running backs you can get in all formats.
And those were the ones that were kept as the keepers.
Yes, and those are like no-brainers.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, according to these rankings, I think these are PPR rankings.
PPR rankings.
But the next is Eddie Lacy. So Eddie Lacy had a pretty good year last year with the Packers, despite the fact that Aaron Rodgers was out for like part of the year.
But the only thing I would be afraid of is with what I did last year was saying, "Oh man, they won't have a sophomore slump." Will Eddie Lacy have a sophomore slump if Aaron Rodgers is the Aaron Rodgers of old?
Here's the thing that I look at with kind of that risk factor. You look at a team like the Packers, and you're kind of referring to Trent Richardson, where he had a bad year with the Browns and the Colts. I like to look at the system, like what team are they on? What kind of organization? Who are the coaches there? Obviously in Cleveland, their owners, their coaches, they're all shit. But you look at the Packers, that's a great organization, great coach, they're winners. I think that he's going to have a good year, because ultimately, if he stumbles, he has Aaron Rodgers as quarterback. His quarterback can bail him out. So I think he'll be okay. I think that he might not be elite, but he's a good solid pick. And Sunny's lucky because she has the best keepers in her league. She has Jamal Charles, Eddie Lacy, and Megatron. So she did great with her keepers. Next we have DeMarco Murray for the Dallas Cowboys.
Now, DeMarco Murray, I know that he's been one player that can play excellent but he's been known to get injured. And he also plays for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, he was injured a little bit last year, but he catches the ball a lot, and they've kind of wanted to throw the ball a little bit more to the running backs in Dallas. And, when he's healthy, he's the number one, and they don't really have anyone better to back him up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd be comfortable keeping DeMarco Murray, but I don't think that he's like on that elite level. So yeah, and then next we have Monty Ball. Monty Ball, he's on the Denver Broncos, and really where a lot of his value is because he plays with Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning throws the ball a whole lot. And when you throw the ball a whole lot, they don't stack the box for you, and you are able to find a whole lot of running lanes. And I've heard a lot about No Sean Moreno, and he really was able to run a whole lot last year because they had very few men in the box. So I think it's interesting. I think that No Sean Moreno is a little bit underrated. Monty Ball, I think that he's a good sleeper pick, but I wouldn't be comfortable drafting him that high. There's some people who think he's that good, but I don't think he's going to be that great. I'm okay with letting him blow up on someone else's team. What do you think, Dave?
I'm sorry, I am back. If you didn't notice, I was not talking. So, what player are we on?
We're on Monty Ball.
Money Ball. Now, he's the player that you picked.
No, I didn't. No. I picked Le'Veon Bell. We're talking about Monty Ball. What I said is that I think he's a little overrated for where he's going in drafts because a lot of people are drafting him because Denver throws the ball a whole lot, and he's going to have a lot of running lanes.
Yeah, and was he kept in our league?
Yeah, absolutely. Jason kept him.
And, okay, wow. So one thing I remember about Monte Ball is that he actually lost his job. He was supposed to be the starting running back for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
But didn't he start dropping the ball left and right?
I don't remember. I just knew that somewhere down the line, No Sean Moreno got the job, and he kept it.
Yeah.
Mainly because Moreno was good at pass protection. So I think that Monty Ball, he has got to be good at keeping, because that's really important with Peyton Manning, because the most important thing is you have to make sure your quarterback doesn't get hit, because if your quarterback's done, you're SOL.
And it's kind of funny. So with us having 3 keepers, you could definitely tell where people are grabbing onto these running backs and not letting go.
Sure, it's because there's not a whole lot of depth at the position. We'll get into that later.
Yes, and so it's just a very interesting thing to look at.
Yeah. So another thing I heard is, which is a really good point. It says, the Denver Broncos, they're a smart organization, and No Sean Moreno didn't leave and get paid a ton of money by going to Miami. He got paid relatively low contracts. So I think that the Broncos, if they were really worried and didn't have a whole lot of faith in Monte Ball, they would have kept No Sean Moreno. Mm-hmm. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't want any part in it.
Yeah, because I would actually like to see if he got offered more money to go over to.
No, I don't think so. I think the Broncos would bring him back at a league minimum, but I don't think they were really interested in bringing him back.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is a guy who was not kept, and that was Giovanni Bernard of the Bengals. And I predict that he's going to go off our board because we're going to do a live draft, actually.
Good.
And I think he's going to be gone first pick. If Johnny has any sense, he's going to pick Giovanni Bernard. I suspect he's going to. I tried to trade and get the number 1 pick from Johnny so I could specifically draft Giovanni Bernard because in our league, we'll get to some of the other people who were kept in a second. He's like the last kind of elite guy left.
Or the potential to be elite. He's no Adrian Peterson, but he's on the next tier.
Well, he's a guy who had a really good rookie year, and he's that another kind of potential sophomore slump.
Mm-hmm. And also, you and I, when we saw that he was not kept, we were both like, I want this player.
Just rubbing your hands.
I need this player. And then I was like, oh, right, there's no way that you can get him because you had the 10th pick. And then you blew by me and you said to the person that had the number 3 pick, hey, I'll give you this person.
No, she came to me.
She came to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and what was that trade that you...
So what happened was that we are in we keep 3 players, and I was already keeping Breeze, AJ Green, and Le'Veon Bell. And I wanted to kind of have a balance among my positions. And actually, believe it or not, based on the way we score, because we get return yards for our players as well, Antonio Brown, we'll get into him later, but briefly to touch on him, he had the most points in our league last year, but I didn't want to keep him. I wanted to only keep 1 wide receiver, and AJ Green is a little bit more consistent. So player in our league approached me, Kelly, and said she gave me the switch my 10th pick for her 3rd overall pick, as long as I give her Antonio Brown as a keeper.